All right, we've been working hard on putting this wiring harness kit in. This is a wire harness made by American Autowire, the classic update kit for a 1956 Chevy Bel Air. I thought I was going to be putting this together in one episode. No, one episode became two, and now I'm sorry, but two episodes just became three. So this is episode two. So episode one, it was when I put in the fuse panel, and I ran all the front light circuits, the circuits to the front headlights, to the horn, ran that branch. Then at the end of that episode, I took everything back to the trunk, and I got all the rear tail lights. So that's all in episode one. Then in episode two, which is going to be this one, there's a lot of work underneath the dash, and I'm going to continue on with that. And then episode three is going to be the last little button-up details, and then actually putting the fuses in, the relays in, turning on all the switches, and seeing to them that it all works. So sorry for this being a marathon series, but this is just the way it's going to work out. I've been getting a lot of good comments, a lot of good feedback about this being a very complete story of how to put this in, and it's going to help somebody, so hopefully it helps you. If you're interested in seeing this part two, stay tuned. All right, well, through the magic of YouTube, it's the next day. I finished what I was working on last night in the trunk, and it was dark when I came out. It was very late, so I came out today, or actually first thing this morning, I went and ran errands, and I went and, on a parts run. So one of the things that I went looking for were retaining clips. We went looking for some of these, and I went to AutoZone, and AutoZone had a pack of 3 of these for more than $5. And I went to Home Depot and was looking for some other stuff, and Home Depot had a pack of 2 of these for $3, about the same price. Then I went to my favorite, Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight, 18 for $6. And they're different sizes, and I've been using the heck out of them. But I used a combination of those and some of the plastic clips, and I'm going to show you what I did. Let's go look at the trunk. All right, so in the trunk, where I was last night, you know, I got everything taken care of. I got it all buttoned up. So that line now runs up, and I put a couple of retainers over there, and that line is now up and hidden. And if you step back, you can't see it. And my plugs are up high. This is tucked, so that looks good. And then going to the other side, it all runs along this tail panel. Goes underneath here, comes around over on this side, and the same thing. It tucks inside of the corner. Then I also went underneath the front of the hood here, and I got all this tightened up. So now this is routed. I went and put some clips underneath there. That's why I've got the wrap over the motor. And then what I'm going to do is when I mount my battery box, I'm going to have 2 clips, big clips, that come around and catch that part of the wiring harness and catch my battery cable as it goes down towards the starter. And then on this side, this came out so nice on underneath this fender. This is where, you know, so that wire is right there. There it is. And these little clips, I'm going to show you what I did. I used some of these metal clips. I used some of these, and then I clipped off one end of it, and then I just I shoved the other side underneath the fender, in between the fender, in between this and the inner liner, so it just sits there, and then at the end is cut off, and it just holds it snug, so it's real nice and tight and tidy. But that's everything that I've gotten done so far today. Now I need to turn my attention to the next thing, which is going to be inside of the car, inside of the at the dash. I'm going to start looking at that and seeing what's left, because I know I had the gauge cluster was one of the first things that we opened up out of the box, and I never did deal with that. So I need to get in here and start plugging in and getting all those different branch circuits, get them all plugged into the main harness that goes to the fuse panel. So let me get inside the car. You know, I did forget, there's one more, the courtesy lamp kit. So they give you 2 courtesy lamps that go with the door contactor circuit, and those 2 little pieces will end up I'll put them in the corners. You'll put them here and over there, and it gives you some down lighting. I don't know that the factory had that. They might have, they might not have, but I know we're going to put that in here. Underneath the dash, if you remember, okay, so the engine circuit came in and it's got its plug, and then also there was a purple and a red wire that just came in long, and I just shoved those through, and those two are going to go to a terminal end that's going to end up plugging in here. So there's the starter circuit. So that starter circuit, this purple and red wire, I have the plastic housing that snaps onto that, and then I've got a couple of again, this type of a fitting, the female end of a blade, and it's going to have that that W shape that we're going to put it in the jaw of my crimper, and it's going to have that W shape to it when it's finished. So that's what it's got to plug into. So let me go ahead and strip that and get that done. So unfortunately, these two wires, which are now in that wire loom, or I've got them already taped up, need to be cut way back there to the same length as what I had. So I'm going to have to crimp those kind of blind and out of the way, and I can't get the camera set up in there to show you. I was going to show you as I did it, but let me just go ahead and get it done. Okay, I've got them crimped. So there's the two wires, and here's my plug. And just to make sure I don't goof it up, I can see where the purple one goes and the red one goes, so I need to get those in the right ports, and I can't do this with holding the camera, so let me go ahead and slip those in. Well, I noticed I made a mistake. Alright, so this front wiring, I went through this hole thinking there was a rubber grommet that I needed to do here, and what there is instead is this. Here's my old wiring harness. All of this ugliness. But this is the grommet. So the grommet is actually a plastic fitting, the piece that's underneath the hood and then the piece that's inside of the car. They both basically meet at this grommet. So I needed to unplug these and then plug the outer side into this one and then this one into that. So I can take the clip off and I can fish all of those wires out, and so I might do that. Let me go ahead and look at that. I'm in luck. It just slips right in and out. So I was able to get it out, so I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and tape the rest of this up so we don't see all this color, and then I'll use that, basically it's like a bulkhead, it's not a grommet. So I'll use that. Okay, so let me go ahead and get this apart and then we'll put that in. Well, I was able to get it off, but I had to destroy the old one to do it, and now I see why. Because it's formed around the flange of the interior one. So I thought I was going to be able to slip this over, but I can't. So what I'm going to have to do is, this is pretty much, that's pretty hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this and slip it over that flange and then try to tuck this back in. So this will go like that, but it'll be split. I'll split it, get it over that, push that back in, and then hopefully I'll be able to plug it in. All right, got it. Got it. All right, step back, and there you go. Looks factory. Back to the inside. So as I'm moving ahead and trying to make these connections, I had one of these, it said to front. And this one confused me because there's only 3 wires on it. It's the same color as some of the wires that go to the front. So I was like, what the heck is that? And if you look at it, it says dimmer switch feed. So, okay, there's another bag. And it came with what they call a dimmer switch, which is the high beams. You know, it's on the foot. It's a foot stomp down. And I'm looking at how this mounts. And then I had to go back to my 56 passenger factory assembly instruction manual, and they show that kick down, they show that switch. It looks a little bit different, but it's here, and you should be able to thread into it, but this doesn't have any threads, which is curious. So that's going to be a trick. It is buried, and then it's very clear here that it goes on a, that all the inner workings go on the underside. But the other thing that I noticed is I just fought that in. That's the electrical harness for this. But then I remember this grommet, and it's a 4-piece grommet, and it looks like there's a couple of things that come through it, and one of them is the speedometer cable. So the speedometer cable is going to have to go through that, and it's got two threaded ends on it that will never slip through this, so this is going to have to be split. I don't have it. I'm going to have to order one. And the other thing is, this is already wired to the fuse panel, and it's got the clipped end on it, so there's no feeding this through that hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out a way to do the dimmer, the kick down, dimmer kick switch. I'm going to try to figure out a way to do it from the backside, and hopefully I can figure out a way to thread that or I don't know what, but I'm going to work on it. All right, so I wrapped it with harness tape and then shoved it through. I had to pop a hole in the firewall pad. I now ran it out here, and it plugs into the dimmer switch. So now the dimmer switch has got to go underneath there, and it's on the bottom, of course, so I've got to fish that up, and then I got to find a way. I'm going to stick two bolts from the top, and then I'm going to have to finagle some nuts from the bottom. All right, I got to pull through. Zip tie holding it up, but I got you can kind of see the holes in the back are looking at me, so I'm going to stick the bolt through it, 2 bolts, and hopefully be able to find this on the other side. Ha! I did it. I did it. I did it. Ha! Okay. The zip tie. And then, yeah. All right, so that's plugged in, that's in. What's the next circuit? I don't know, we got the ignition switch, we got the headlights. So ignition switch goes over here, headlights over there. Let me see if I can't get something like that in. Then I got my gauge cluster left to go. So let's see, let me go open up the headlight switch bag. All right, the next thing is gonna be the headlight switch. Comes in a bag, and it's a brand new switch, and it's got a new knob that goes with it. So I'm not gonna completely put it in because I still don't have my trim, and I don't want to really start detailing this, but I'm gonna throw my trim in last later on. So I plugged it in. It's very obvious which wire or which plug goes onto it. There's only one that's shaped all cockamamie like that. But one thing that the instructions say is it says that the replacement switch has a knob or a retaining nut that may be bigger than the hole that it comes out of, and sure enough, that is the case. So I've got a step taper bit in my drill, and that's what I'm going to just open this up a little bit, just a tiny bit, hopefully. Okay, that was one. Let's make sure, and there it goes. Okay, so they were right, just a little bit, but a step taper bit got it done. All right, so let me just get that switch slid back there, and it does have a little indexing key, so I'll be able to put that in so that it doesn't rotate. If I can hold it in place and put the nut in. Alright, that'll just get that locked out of the way. That's one less thing. So now I know I have my trim I need to do, so I just wanted to kind of get all this like buttoned up. So what's the next step? So the next thing is going to be the ignition switch. So the ignition switch has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terminals, but there's only 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one is dead. I wonder why. I wonder if something else got to come in there. But let's see if I can't match these up. Okay, it says I probably need to put a wire in there because that's the ground. So you have ground, accessory, solenoid, battery, ignition. There's possibly a ground wire here, so I need to go get the instructions for the ignition switch and see if I don't need to route a ground to this. Alright, it says that the ground for bulb check used only to light a temperature lamp during startup. Well, that's pretty cool when you turn it on, you know, the lights that come on the dash. So Christine never did that I know of, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to put that in. All right. So I made one. I clipped on the same wire terminal onto the end of a black ground wire. And I'll stab that in. And that'll be sitting there waiting for me to plug it in somewhere. So, and that goes in. All right, now I got a wire in every port. And then the switch. The switch is going to go on there. Plug it in. Yep. Yep. And that's it. And it clips on. They got a backer nut. It's made of sheet metal. And it goes in. I guess you can adjust the depth. So let's just go ahead and get this ground wire out of the way first. And it does tell you, pull my tape off. I have to have it marked. It does tell you that when you put this in, all right, it's got a flat side. And where'd that nut retainer go? So there's a retainer clip, or just an indexing clip. It's got a flat side and then a little tab that goes in here. And that'll keep it from spinning. But it tells you that if there's a chance that you put it in and that's not indexed the same way that your old one was. So, yeah, all right, watch. Oh, check this out. I'm gonna have to go way out with that nut. Oh yeah, because this is just like real close and shallow. It's only got a few threads in it. So I need to pull that. I need to get that nut backed all the way out. And I'm gonna have to adjust this when I go ahead when put my well, actually no, just the bezel. I don't know how thick the bezel is, but I've got it somewhere. I will find it. I will find it. I'm just not ready for my trim yet. I just want to get all this kind of set up, all the wires cut and indexed. There we go. And it's just roughed in, you know. So, okay, that's sitting there like that waiting for me. And now on to the next thing. So we got the windshield wiper. Windshield wiper is actually part of, I did a windshield wiper kit in here from Specialty Power Windows. So this is not going to be in the American Autowire set, but I've got to figure out what to do with this. It's got its own harness, so this plugs into the motor, and it looks like all I have to do is just feed it power. It looks like there's a positive and a ground here, and then a positive and a ground here. So what I need to do is get the Specialty Power Windows instructions out and see what I need to do with that. So it just continues and continues and continues. So let's keep going. So the Specialty Power Windows instructions show there's a red wire going to my harness to the motor and another red wire going back to the intermittent switch. So they want you to supply a fused 12-volt power source to it. So back a few years ago, I restored a 71 Cutlass, and the original wiring harness, I saved every factory terminal end, and this was one of them. This was the boot, or the plug, the plastic plug, and I have the other end of it on the American Autowire harness, and there it is. So I had some new connections, some new terminal ends. So I put a blade on this one, and had an oversized connection for this one that mates to that. So those two will go together, and it'll look factory, even though it'll be underneath there and nobody will see it. But okay, it is late in the afternoon on a Sunday, and I have been at it now all weekend long. So I'm going to break it here, and I'm going to go inside and try to get some R&R before I go back to work tomorrow. So, okay, see you when I get back. All right, welcome back. It's been a few days, but to you, it's, I guess, just a flip of the video. But I've got a few more parts that have come in, so that's been it's gonna be helpful. So continuing on, even though like that was like a week ago or last weekend, yeah, a week ago. So I got a few more parts. I got some grommets. I got a grommet that goes into the Firewall. This is a 4-part grommet that's gonna go down here where the wiring harness goes in. Comes in and out of the firewall, and also the speedometer cable. I'm going to show you something about that. I also got a grommet that's going to go behind my distributor back here. So this port that's back here, I've got a grommet for that. Let's see. I also have two door switches. So this is for the courtesy light. This is going to go in a door jamb. I have two of those, brand new. Those are expensive. Those are like 35 bucks a piece. So if you got your old ones, save them if they're any good. All right. So what I'm going to dive into right now is going to be the reverse lights. I got a brand new reverse light switch that goes in my standard transmission on my manual. It's a Saginaw 4-speed underneath there. So I broke the terminal end on it when I was servicing it. That's another video. I'll put a link to that up here. But I've got a new switch. The speedometer cable and the wire for this switch follow each other. So we're going to go ahead and put that in. We're going to put in the speedometer cable, that grommet, a wire going to the backup switch, and putting this backup switch on the transmission. All right, these pink and green wires are part of they're hardwired into the fuse panel. And they were inside of all the stuff that was all tie wrapped together, and I had to tease them out to get them all the way back to the fuse panel. But these are the two that go to the neutral, or not the neutral, go to the backup switch. So it's just a continuity circuit. You know, when you put it in reverse, it just connects these two, and that's all that it does. But this is literally like 6 inches too short to follow the speedometer cable path and come to where the reverse switch is on the back of this transmission. So what I need to do is, for one, I don't like that this is like hardwired to the panel without a plug. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect this up there and put a plug on it, but the two ends I'm going to extend. So it'll be pink and green coming out of that fuse panel, and then after that it's going to be two other colors that I just have to happen to have in my bag of tricks. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with the terminal ends. The terminal ends, they give you some extra ones. They give you a whole bag of extras. But this is the switch. And there is no connection that fits exactly on that I can see. There's nothing in this bag. So what I'm going to do is I need to make two separate terminal ends that go boom, boom, and connect to that, which is going to be here. I'm going to use this green and yellow wire, and nobody's going to see it. You're not going to tell because it's going to be wrapped in the harness tape. So I'm going to put a double connector on the end of this, a double connector on the end of the pink and green wires, and then two terminal ends on this. Wrap it, follow the speedometer cable, and plug it into this. All right, terminal end. That's a little plastic connector. The housing, slip it in, snap, boom, ready to go. Get another one, same thing. See the little tab and a little groove, slip it in, snap, ready to go. So these two are going to go on the back of this terminal end like that, and like this. If I can bend them out of the way and get them to fit. Yeah, let me do it this way, that way, and like this. There you go. Okay, so they're both on, they're both insulated. Now that'll go on the back of the transmission. I'll wrap this wire and leave it long on the other end so that we can fix its length once we know how long to make it. I don't know if I said it yet, but you're going to need 2 rolls of tape. So I have a second roll. I'm going to crack it open, but that's everything you've seen so far in this video has been all 1 roll of tape. So now the second roll will be plenty to finish what we need. So I'm going to continue wrapping this and we'll put it in. Got it. There's a reverse light, the 2 wires. I went with yellow and green because that's what I had, and you can see I've got it wrapped, and then I've got it electrical tie wrapped to the speedometer cable, and the speedometer cable is now attached to the transmission. And all this goes, it follows the same path, and it comes up towards the firewall. I'll show you that on the other side. So that comes up here, and I've got it tie wrapped to it. Comes through that little port down there, and I got them about the same length, but this doesn't need to be that long. It's going to go right behind the fuse panel, but I've got plenty of wire there. So now there's going to be 1 wire, 2 wires, and the speedometer cable all going through this port. And I've got a 4-port grommet, And I thought I remembered this grommet, this style grommet coming out right there, and I'm pretty sure it shows it on the diagram. But when I look at this diameter, that diameter, and that diameter, this is a little big, so I'm going to probably have to force it, and hopefully it'll go in there, but let me try to get that in. All right, there's the bulkhead, the grommet. I had to cut it 4 ways to get it to fit. And then in here, I got these terminal ends done. Where'd they go? Where'd they go? All right, so that's the one, this is the one coming off the fuse panel, and the one coming off of the transmission is right here. So I need to plug those two together. I need to get those slid up out of the way, tucked out of the way, and plugged in. Next thing I'm going to do are the courtesy lights. So I'm going to do the door jamb. I'm going to do a courtesy light up underneath the dash right here, and I'm going to do another one over there. So I just need to drill a couple of holes and then mount these, and then everything else is more or less pre-wired. Alright, I got the light mounted right here. I got the other one mounted, same thing, and you can see the little whip coming down. So this has got its whip coming down, and there's a tailpiece on it. We'll talk about all that. So on both sides of the wiring harness, if I can pull it down, there's going to be a corresponding whip that plugs in. So this plugs into this. Same thing on the other side. Now, your door jamb switch, all these switches work the same way. When you turn on your dome light, and the dome light comes on, these courtesy lights are going to come on. Everything is doing the same thing. It's grounding this circuit. So all these lights have a 12 volt positive run to them, and the ground is what it's waiting for. So if this switch closes, then it turns on. If that switch closes, then it turns on. If this switch closes, then it turns on. So they're all linked together. Any one of these white wires makes contact with ground, the dome lights, the courtesy lights are coming on. So, all right, the next thing is this brand new switch came with an old bullet style terminal end. So fortunately, the American Autowire comes with those bullet tips, but the wire that's already pre-wired has got a little blade. So I'm going to have to snip this off, put a bullet on, mount this, slip it in, and we'll be done. And there's a bullet connection. So that's going to go into the back side of the switch. Let's go ahead and get that wired up. Alright, so I got my bullet end on my wire. It's going to eventually go over and behind the kick panel. So now this, I need to slip this in, but this is going to be tight, so I'm going to take a pair of pliers and press it in, trying not to damage the switch. There we go. All right, so that's in, that's snug, and shove it back in. Boom, comes with some new screws. New screws go in. They're just sheet metal screws. And they just go in like that. Alright, that's it. So that's all there is for the courtesy lights. I'm going to do the other side now. So the next thing I'm going to do is a brake light switch, which I picked up a brand new one from AutoZone. And I just got a generic one. I don't know if it's the correct one for the period, but they all work the same. I mean, it's just making continuity. So they give you, with the American Autowire kit, they give you 2 different brake wires. They give you orange coming in, and they give you blue and white coming out. So there's 2 different plugs. And these go on 2 sides of this. So the blue is, if you remember, the third tail light, and the white is the one for all the actual brake lights, the tail lights. So you just need these plugged into 2 sides of the switch. But the American Autowire kit came with this long plastic connector that the piece that I want is way up in there, and it needs to plug into this. So I need to pull these two connectors off and use 2 of the shorter ones so that they'll go straight in. So in order to get these off, I gotta reach in. I got a little pick. You reach in and you depress the little tab, and once you get that, then it ought to slide out and find it. Get on top of it. There we go. All right, and that's it. So sometimes when you put the new terminal in, you need to pry that back out because you mashed it. So pry that back out so it sticks pretty good in the next one. I'm gonna grab 2 of these little plastic connectors and just slip them on, and that's gonna be it. So let me go ahead and plug this in. 1 and 2, and that's it. So now that'll go into the housing right there. There's two nuts, a jam nut and then a lock nut. Bring that in. Need to make sure I got the wire routed where it wants to be, so it's not all tangled on top of things. All right, and it's in. So that's it right here. And you can see the little white, watch the little thing disappear, and it shows up. So brake lights off, brake lights on when you press the pedal, just like that. And all it's doing is just completing the circuit. So just need to make sure it's tight, and that'll be done. All right, there was one block right here. It was a 6-pin connector. It was real close to the fuse panel, and I didn't know what it was. So I looked it up and I figured out that's for all the accessories. So if you've got power windows, power locks, power seats, that's where all that is. But that's also where the fuel pump lies. So there's a fuse that's marked for fuel pump. I've got an electric fuel pump mounted on a frame rail behind me on the other side. So I'm going to run a wire all the way over there, and I'm going to recover. There was one extra wire that came with something. I teased this out. I think that's just for the electric choke. So I took the electric choke wire, because they don't give you any extra wires for any of these devices, but I'm going to use that electric choke wire. I'm going to plug it into the 6-block terminal. I'm only going to have one wire coming out of the 6-block terminal, and it's going to route all the way to the other side, and I'm going to end up having to pop down on the other side by the rocker panel in order to grab my fuel pump. So I'm going to do that next. So all right, any instructions? There's the accessory connector, which I have in my hand, and it's number 2. And the number 2 accessories says use the provided connector R and terminals S if you wish to connect to the accessory connector. And then dark blue is fuel. Then the other one's power seats, power locks, cruise, power windows, and CB. So it says lead may also be used to feed to another circuit. So I'm going to have to keep that in mind, because one of the things I want to do is I want to put a cigarette lighter underneath the seat on the front, because that's where I always put my wire, my phone charger. So I ran that in my Cutlass, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to put a cigarette lighter that you plug in a USB power supply into it, and then feed from that. So I don't know that accessories. It says ignition feed, battery, ignition, battery, accessory. So ignition feed, it's only on when you turn on the key, which is the fuel. But let's see, our power seats on battery, power locks on battery, cruise only on the ignition, power windows on the battery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a second port in this, and that's where I'm going to run my power supply to underneath my seat for that cigarette lighter. So now, unfortunately, it doesn't map it for you. It doesn't tell you which one is which, at least not that I've been able to see. Yeah, so I'm going to have to figure out which one is the dark blue, and then I'm going to use let's see, I'm going to use the power seats. That makes sense. Power seats, power to the seats, power seats, doesn't that make sense? Okay, 30 amp, fuse 12-volt battery connection. So I'm going to use the dark blue and the orange. I need to figure out which 2 ports are those on that little block on the fuse panel. All right, so it's this. So dark blue and orange. Snappity doodah on the top, and the dark blue is the bottom left corner, and then the orange is the one right next door to it. So those are the 2 that I need. So now on this, it snaps like this. So I need these 2 on my lower left. Alright, those are the only two I'm using. So I'll plug into that terminal end up there, that plug, and that'll give me power to underneath my seat, and it'll give me power to my fuel pump. So now this is where it gets ugly. I got my Speedo and it's got all the lights, it's got all the sockets for the lights. The kit does come with some wire looms for that. It gives you some terminal end connections. Not quite sure yet how that's all going to work out. It gives you a whole bunch of brand new bulb sockets. Again, not sure how that's going to work out, but they give me a diagram here for a 55 or 56 Chevy cluster. I've got to decipher that. Then if you run an electronic or electric speedometer, then I guess there's one of these plugs in here that'll be dead that I won't use, so it's whichever one goes to this. So one less thing. So I'm gonna have to sit here and tinker and figure out what I'm gonna do with this, but yeah, let me get into it. All right, I've made up my mind. I've looked at this pack of sockets, and they give me one strip, just one. Give me one strip of these little rivets, 6 dots. Remember on the front turn signals, I thought they gave me extras because I ruined a few of them. You remember I soldered them, so I ended up wasting a couple of them, and I think those couple belong here, which, you know how inexpensive it is for this? That's like a nickel. Stick that in the bag. Give me a second one. So I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm reusing Christine's lights. So I recovered these from my wire harness just now, the old one, and they were all marked. So I just plugged them all in, or just stuck them where they were supposed to go, and I'm comparing it to the colors. And the colors on the new diagram are equal to the colors of what they used to be. So there you go. The gray are all just illumination. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 lights to just give a glow. And then you have turn signal. One is this. Let's see, what color are they? One is light blue, and one is dark blue. And then high beam is green. Then you've got these 2 sockets. One is for oil and one is for the generator. And I don't know if you remember, if you tuned in for all this, but remember there was a light on the switch, on the ignition switch, and said if you want, ground this. So give a ground if you want an indicator light when you turn the switch on to see it, to check these things, and they'll come on. So the oil and the generator light will come on. And so that's what I think this second wire is. There's one wire coming out of here and another one coming out of here. Then there's another wire coming out of here that goes to it. So I think that's what that's for. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna go ahead and wire it just like they show, but I'm gonna recover most of my light sockets. I'm gonna make 2 new ones here, and that ought to take care of this instrument cluster. So what's the logic in this? Here's the connector, which goes right there. It's all of like 3 inches or 4 inches behind the instrument cluster, and it's got plenty of whip length. But look at this. I've got enough wire to go, I don't know, to the back of the car. So I'm going to end up cutting 5 feet of wire off of every one of these just to leave maybe a 6-inch whip, and I'm going to splice this into all of my lights. So I'm going to go do that on a bench, but that's ridiculous, because particularly when I just had that one wire was only 6 inches too short. You know, there's just no rhyme or reason. Well, a little more digging in the box, and I remembered, I found these. So this is one. This is the oil light, and they give it to you. It's just got 2 wires on it, but at least it's got the socket. And then the other one is brown and pink, and it gives you the socket. So that's for the generator light. And it's already got the plug end on it, so that's good. And lo and behold, it's about as long as I'm about to make these. So I'm about finished, and I'd like to show you what I've got so far. So this is it's intermixed. So I've used some of my original sockets. So I use the sockets in these 6 ports here. 3 of these, the 3 grays, here, and here, are common. They're just illumination for the light, so they're looking for a ground and a positive feed. then the turn signal indicators here and here are looking for a ground and a positive feed. So here you go, the light blue and dark blue. Then you've got the generator light, alternator light here. This is its own separate whip. And then the oil light has two different, it comes from both whips. So the dark blue, or the blue wire here goes to that, as well as a pink wire goes to that light. There's also a ground from each one of these that goes to two different corners. So you got to clip, you got to crimp a round eyelet on the end of those two. But what I want to show you is the two gauges, one for the temperature and the other for the fuel. So there's a voltage side and then there's a switch side, voltage side, switch side. So what they want you to do is they want you to bridge the pink, which is all common for this, and then this will go, it's got this is the most specialized connection I think I've seen. So these two, I'll show you what that looks like before it's assembled. But this snaps on here, and they show you that if you've got a if you have a 55, that it looks a little different. So we're going to put these two on here, and that's the positive, the way they show you to do it, from here to here, jumping to there. Then the other two switch wires, this is for this color is for the fuel sending unit, so that comes over here. But look at this connection, this terminal end, and this little boot that goes over it. And there's a special way that it goes in, because you can see if you look really closely, I doubt the camera's going to pick it up, but on this top side is where the little retainer is that this thing snaps out, so that you can snap it in and snap it out if there's an issue. So it just goes in like that. And I've got another one that goes on to the last wire, which is here. Took me a little while to find it. And that's going to snap in here. Same thing. I find the little flat end that it clips on. There it is. And that's going to go in that way. And that's it. So then this green wire goes to the sending unit for the temperature. And this tan wire goes to the comes from the sending unit to the sending unit side of the fuel gauge. And that's all of it. So what I might do, I'll probably take some of my tape to get some of this tightened up. There is a wire loom connector here, so you can kind of like fish it and make it nice and tidy. And I might do that. So this is done. The instrument cluster is done. That was this bag H. And they do show you on the back. They show you how each one of these connections go, and they show you if it's a 55 or it's a 56, and then they show you different ways of doing this stuff. So that is 100% of the gauge cluster. Whew. There you go. All right. So now next step. So I mentioned the bulbs, and they look like this, but there's two different types. So these are single contactor, and they are 2-prong, same depth. And there's two different types of bulbs that go onto the instrument cluster. There's a number 53 and a number 57. And the logic is the number 57 is a brighter wattage. It's like 3.4 watts. And the 53 is half the wattage. It's 1.7 watts. So before LED, right, wattage basically was an indication of brightness. So the 57 is a brighter bulb than is the 53. So you have 57 for your regular lamps, you have 57 for your oil and your generator lamp, and then you have 53 for your turn signal indicators, and also for the high beam. So they still make number 53 and they still make number 57, so I'm going to have to go to the auto parts store and get some brand new bulbs to replace all of them. So I'm not going to put it in yet, but because I still need to clean up the chrome. But you can see 1, 2, 3 connectors that I have in the back of mine, and right here, 1, 2, 3 connectors looking at me. So these 3 go to those 3, and it just inserts So that'll be all of that. Then the last one to connect for this, at least for this area, is all turn signal indicators. Now on a more modern car, after they remove the key switch from the dash, when they put it in a column, now those column shifters have a different number of wires coming out of the column shifter. So I actually have my steering column, which is going to go in today, and I have all of the wires right here ready to go. So I took off the connector that was on it, and they give me a new one. So these are all the same blade type connections, so I ought to be able to match every one of these to those. So that's what I'm going to do next. This is the connection coming out of the fuse panel, and this is going to connect to the steering column down here, but I have it just pulled out where it's convenient. And you can see that there is a corresponding part that has a little clip on the bottom, and it goes in like this. Got a little extra tail for probably for ignition switch if you had such a thing on the column. But here, these go in and they're all labeled. But the thing to keep in mind here is the color coding of the wires. So the instructions do show you that light blue is left front turn, dark blue right front, purple is a turn feed switch, blue and white are brake switch, yellow is left rear turn, dark green right rear turn, brown turn and hazard, and then black is the horn, relay, ground. So they show you what the stock wire colors are on the right, but that's what's coming out of the wiring harness, and they are also labeled. You can see that there's a left rear turn switch. So each one of these has the little tag on it, so it'll kind of keep you coloring between the lines and doing it right. So now we got white, green, yellow, purple, brown, blue, and black. So now I need to get this basically in the same corresponding order because it's got similar or the same colors. I've got a white, I've got a brown, a green, dark blue, light blue, yellow, purple, and a black. And this on my steering column, because it was already in one of these connectors before, I just pulled it out, has all of these little blades already mounted to it. So that's my tilt column, and now what I need to do is I just need to get that set of wires in this order. So that's what I'm going to do next. And that's what it looks like when it's done. So I did have to change one blade. I had to bend, every one of the little retaining tongs was bent inward, and I had to flip them out, and one of them broke, so I ended up having to clip a new one onto this light blue wire, but they're all the same. So now they're all ready to plug into that, and now I need to consider what I'm going to do with my steering column, and at what point am I going to go ahead and put it in place, because I need to do my cluster gauge. I need to redo the chrome on it. I need to clean it up. But now I'm down to nothing more than just the heater, blower, and then glove compartment light, and the radio, and the clock. Those are all there. So those things are all just sitting right there. It's all just small stuff. Got the air conditioner blower too. I got a feed that's going to go to the air conditioner compressor. I'm not quite sure, so I guess that supply is going to come to my vintage air unit, the controller, which I need to do that. But I don't know that I'm going to do that in this video. So I'll probably save all of that, all the blower and air conditioner and that for another episode. But we got the clock. I might put in a radio, but I'm thinking I'm going to get all this more or less buttoned up today. I've got so many things that are temporary right now that it's about time we start putting some permanence in. So how about we start putting in my trim, and I can mount these switches for good, So I'm looking forward to it. I got some new stainless steel screws. My switch, I got my cover bezel, but this will go on before that. Put that in. It's going to go behind the instrument cluster. Alright, so I got the headlight switch out, and I ended up having to drill my trim, a little escutcheon plate that says lights. I had to drill that. Same way I had to drill that. So let's see if we can't get this wire. Pull up here, the switch, Go in. Make sure, yeah, it feels like it's right. It wants to spin the escutcheon. I think that is snug enough. Yep, that's snug enough. That's that part on. Yep, we'll be able to get the instrument cluster after we get this side on. So I need to get the middle in. Let's see, and I also I've got that side. So let me go do. Yeah, I think, what is this one holding in? What's holding in this one? It's just being held in by the radio. It's being held in by this. It's being held in by that. That's the lighter, and I did find my lighter, so I've got that ready to go back in. All right, let's put the center one in, and this should be held in by the radio, by the speedometer, the gauge cluster, by the clock speaker thing. So this, I still have my cigarette lighter, and I just came back from AutoZone actually to buy some bulbs so I could continue on and just put everything together. But my lighter assembly is, you can still buy this. This is like still on the shelf at AutoZone. You can still get this. So they still make it. But it's as simple as that. You know, you got the body behind it. This inserts in, and then the body behind it just screws over it. And that's all there is to it. Slide this in place, get this to where it looks like it's centered. Yeah, all this stuff is like catawampus. Got plenty enough room to get it in. Yep, that's tight. Lighter. Put the lighter in. Boom. And there'll be a terminal end, one thing that goes to the end of that, just to power itself grounds. It should. Alright, and this. Now the stereo will hold that in. I'm going to put that in too sooner rather than later. How about that? But not right now. So let's go to that side. And I've got my clock, radio, and speaker and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set up. Almost forgot to plug in the lighter. So there's a tab on the back of that, and there's a circuit that's dedicated to it. So I'm going to put that on right now. So I have a custom AutoSound stereo that I'm going to put in. And I only listen to 50s music when I'm in Christine. And this is my old speaker. It's a 6x9 that has two 4-inch speakers that just goes in the original speaker grill. And it gives you stereo sound, but it gives you tinny stereo sound, which is the way music used to sound in the 50s in an auto. So I'm good with that. I just like to feel like I'm in the period. So I don't need a boom box. I don't need anything special. So I'm going to put this back in. It's got a bracket that goes and bolts to the bottom, and then comes in here and it goes through the same two holes that hold the speaker grill. So I'm going to insert that behind here, and it's got to come in before the vintage auto air unit that goes behind everything. Kind of a Tetris puzzle. But this goes in here. There's two screws come in the bottom, and the two screws that go on top that hold the speaker grill, which I spent a little bit of time refurbishing a little bit as best I can. And this is old chrome, so it's pitted. It's not definitely not show quality, but what this is this is 1956. This is the original clock, the original bezel, and so I got to put the clock. The clock's going to end up with a light bulb that goes in here, and it's one of these. So I believe it's this one. It's way on this side. The clock bulb that comes with the American Autowire kit. There's a power. It's right here. I'm pretty sure that this is it. They're the same length, so I'm pretty sure that that's the one that goes to the clock. So I need to get a bulb for this, hook that up, put the bulb in, slip it in, and bolt all it together. So I checked the wire and it does say clock. It's on the battery. So that's always hot. But I'm not going to plug it in because this clock, believe it or not, this clock has said 627 for over 20 years. Right at 20 years. As long as I've had it, that's what that clock has said. It's never worked. So maybe I'll get a kit. Maybe I'll make that functional, but not today. Not today. So now this is gonna be a trick because there's some clips that go back here that hold all of this together, and I've got to get all this in. So there's two studs right here that hold this, and they go here and here, and then there's 2 screws that go in from the top, and then the speaker has 2 screws that goes in from the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and fumble that. You don't need to see me fumbling with it, but there you go. That's what it's gonna look like once I get it all in. So this is my new classic or custom auto sound. It's got the little Wonder Bar flippity doodah, so it goes from digital when you want to see it, but then when you don't want to see it, it shows you the AM dial. But it's an AM, FM, Bluetooth, and it's got auxiliary inputs. It's got a direct signal output for an amp if you want to do that. This is a mid-range radio. It's not the least expensive. It's definitely not the most expensive. And I got my wiring harness already plugged in. I made sure I got my phasing correct, positive to positive on the speakers. I'm gonna leave the rear channel dead, but I'm gonna slip this in from the back, use Christine's original strap on the back, and slide it in from the back, and then tighten it up, and that's gonna be pretty much it. I think we need to provide a power to it. I guess I should figure that out. It's like, where does the power come into this thing? Because I've got a radio feed. I think I've got 2 of them. So going back to the instructions, it says right here for radio, there's radio power and there's radio battery. So the radio power is 10, and it says 12 volt fused accessory power lead for radio power. So I guess when your key switch is on accessory, the tan is hot. And then radio battery yellow, 12 volt fused battery power lead for radio memory. So the yellow is going to be hot all the time. And I fished them out, and sure enough, right here, radio battery, and this one says radio. So these are the 2 that go to the radio. They got the wrong terminal ends, or they've got terminal ends on them, but they're not. I need to set it up for the wiring harness that it came with the radio, which looks like this. So I need to take these terminal ends, and that's going to plug in here. And so I have a positive, a ground, an accessory. So there's 1, 2, 3 for power, and then there's 2 outputs here. These 2, one goes to an amp, and the other one goes to an antenna. So if you had, if you had a power antenna that was motorized, or if you had an amp that needed to be triggered and turned on when you turn the stereo on, then it's got a power signal that goes to that. But mine are going to be disconnected, so I'm not going to have that. I'm going to just need to connect the ground, the power, and the accessory. All right, got the radio in, clock is in, so all that dash is coming together. Check this out. I routed the radio antenna. Oh, this is awesome. Check it out. That's where it's going to live, right there. It's going to hide. It's got a nice little, where the whip is. But nobody will ever see that. I mean, geez, you're on top of it. You can barely see it. But there it is. And the cable goes perfectly. It goes up behind the wheel well. It goes behind the skirt, the apron, and then it comes up here, goes into the bulkhead, goes into the firewall, and then comes out and plugs directly into the radio. And it's just the right length. I got the bulbs for the instrument cluster. I got the light switch I still need to put in. Need to put the bezels, the ignition switch, and the windshield wiper. Yeah, so I'm gonna do all that. But I'm exhausted. It's the end of day, I don't know what, 4, 5, maybe 6. I don't know. But I'm getting close. I'm getting really close. So I'm gonna shut it down for the night and go back in. This is gonna be another marathon video, but thank you for sticking with me. I'll see you in the morning. All right, so it's Sunday. Good morning. 2 more weekends after this one before cruising the coast, and I'm not quite sure if I'm going to make it. I've been working with Christine for 3 years now, and I don't know. I've got to do all the interior. I still haven't gotten her running yet, and then hopefully today I'll be able to throw the battery at it and test some of these circuits and make sure things are working. So hopefully we'll close this video on that and proving that certain things work, and maybe that'll feel like an accomplishment. So let's continue where we left off, which was I'm going to go ahead and put this instrument cluster in as best I can. I can't put in my steering column because I'm missing the a pad that goes in the bottom. It's going to be coming in Tuesday. That's the column needs to insert through that, so I can't permanently put my column in. I can kind of set it in place and just kind of have it resting there loose. So we're going to do that. We're going to go also. I'm going to finish my tail lights. I got the sockets that came in for that, so we're going to do that, but then I'm going to put my battery in it and throw some power at it, so let's continue. Okay, I got the instrument cluster plugged in. 1, 2, 3. That's all there is that goes to this. I think the last thing underneath here is what goes to my steering column for the turn signals. So I'm going to slide this up in there and screw it in. It's kind of snug the way it goes. It wants to hang up on the 2 corners against the aluminum trim. So I'm going to slide that in there and then go ahead and screw that in. So as we're buttoning up more and more things, the heater controller, which I haven't adapted this yet for the vintage air unit, but this is exactly the way it was. It had a broken lever that got broken after I pulled it out of the car. But sure enough, there's a bulb in it. So there's a bulb, there's a lens. This comes on with the dash lights, which is nice because I have a triple gauge that I've always had mounted down here in the center. 1, 2, 3. Voltage, oil pressure, and water temperature right here. So those have a backlight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to intercept the heater light, and I'm going to splice on a tailpiece that'll come and attach to my triple gauge for lights. So I'm going to do that. So these are nice auto gauge, retro looking gauges. And these ought to look familiar to you because at the end of my video, if you've watched my videos to the very end, there's a scene of me cruising on I-10, and as I look down, I'm like looking at the highway ahead of me, and then I look down and I look at all the gauges, and these are the gauges. So I need to get my little chrome plate cleaned up. It's just a little funky, but we'll get that cleaned up. And then the wires that go to it right here. And I don't like that they've got a black wire to it. It looks like they were plugged into an orange. So I'm going to clip all this off. I'm going to go back to the red here, and then once I get to the red, since the gray is the color of the wire, since gray is the color of the wire for the dash lights, that's what I'm going to go with. So now that I've made that splice, now I'm going to hard splice it into that heater lamp. So I'm going to cut this in half, and then I'll have 2 coming out and 1 coming in. So I'm going to break it right here, strip it, and then solder that with some shrink wrap. 3 wires with a wrap. Then I got the shrink wrap pulled back, so I just trust these so much more than the crimped ends. Gonna be plenty. All right, once that cools, I'll be able to slide. I'll be able to slide the heat shrink over that, but that'll have my 1, 2, 3 gauge lights and the heater lamp. Oh, it'll be cool enough now. I say it's got to be cool because I don't want it to stop short. There we go. Because if you pull it up against warm wire and it's snug, then it's gonna clamp down on itself right there. So throw a little heat at this and then shrink it in place. So I'm trying to think of what I got left. minimal. I have very little. I have very, very little. One thing I do know I have are grounds that I still need to terminate. I've got a ground that goes to the switch. I've got a ground that goes to my windshield wipers. I've got a ground that goes to the radio. So all of these need to be pulled back here and grounded. I think those are the only 3 grounds I have at the dash. I still have to have my fuel line. My fuel line is roughed in. I need to bring it down and then bring it to my fuel pump, which is right on the frame rail right about there. And then I've got to run my radio antenna too. So I'm going to put that, I'm pretty sure I'm going to put that, since my fuel pump is over here, I think I'm going to put the radio antenna underneath over here. Check this out. I routed the radio antenna. Oh, this is awesome. Check it out. That's where it's going to live, right there. It's going to hide. It's got a nice little, where the whip is. But nobody will ever see that. I mean, geez, you're on top of it. You can barely see it. But there it is. And the cable goes perfectly. It goes up behind the wheel well. It goes behind the skirt, the apron, and then it comes up here, goes into the bulkhead, goes into the firewall, and then comes out and plugs directly into the radio. And it's just the right length. Oh, well, look. All right, if you stuck with me this far, and if you're really paying attention, today was a day that I realized I'm not going to make Cruising the Coast. I'm disgusted by it, but it's just the way it is. I've got 2 more weekends and I've just got way too much to do. This weekend was kind of like the acid test. If I was able to get done everything I was planning on getting done, then I was still going to have a shot, but I don't have a shot. It's just too much. I'm going to start taking shortcuts. I don't want to take shortcuts, not this late in the game. So I'm going to take the Cutlass to Cruising the Coast. So I need to get a battery for this, put a battery in, and we're going to go ahead and throw some power to it and see that all these light circuits and everything works. So that's what's next. All right, let's cut it off right there. So that's it for episode 2. Hope you got something out of it. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're enjoying the channel, I'd love a subscription. Episode 3 is next. If you're interested in seeing that, I'm having a link at the end of this video as soon as we upload it. But until I see you next time, please take care of yourself. Cheers.